Late in the afternoon, two kids, Anna and Dan, were playing on the playground. "Stop pushing me, Dan," Anna said, a bit annoyed as they playfully tussled. With one final push, Anna stumbled backward and fell into the sandbox, hitting her head on something hard. The impact caused her to cry out in pain, attracting the attention of their parents nearby. "Kids, get out of there! Come here!" Dan's father called out urgently as he rushed to Anna's side, his concern visible in his voice. They saw it, forcing Anna and Dan to look away, the source of Anna's injury. A pale, lifeless body lying in the sand. Shocked and alarmed, they rushed at a distance, and Dan's father immediately dialed the emergency services. As the police arrived, they quickly began their investigation and started questioning the four people. As the investigation carried on, it didn't take long for the police to realize they encountered something new, something they hadn't seen before. They encountered a perplexing situation. Despite their efforts, they found themselves unable to move the body or alter its position in the sand. It was as if the corpse was frozen in place, defying all attempts to disturb it. Recognizing the need for specialized assistance, the police called upon Ken and Laura, seasoned investigators known for their no-nonsense approach. As Ken and Laura arrived at the scene, they engaged in light banter while making their way through the crowd of cops. "Show us," Ken firmly demanded. The responding officer led them to the sandbox, where Laura examined the body with a critical eye. "That's new," Laura remarked as she observed the unusual scene. "And you haven't moved him yet?" she inquired, turning to the officer. "We can't," he replied. "He's completely stiff, like he's frozen in place." As Ken and Laura documented the scene and sent pictures to their office, they received an unexpected call from their colleague, Owen. "Are you joking?" Owen asked, a bit annoyed. "What do you mean?" Ken exclaimed. "Why are you two sending me pictures of sand?" Owen said, "Sand? We sent you headshots of a dead body. We're looking at him right now." Ken explained. "Male, Caucasian, 50. And Ken continued. Their disbelief grew as Owen insisted that the photos they sent depicted nothing but sand. Before they could unravel the mystery, a loud bang echoed in the distance, sounded like an explosion, Laura said, prompting them to draw their weapons and investigate. Racing to the source of the noise, they found no signs of an explosion, only a smashed bench and another lifeless body. Perplexed and alarmed, they secured the area and pondered the sinister events unfolding before them. Who could be doing this? Laura wondered aloud, her voice tinged with concern as they contemplated the unsettling mystery. Once again, Ken's phone rang. "Check your phones. Something is not working," Owen said as Ken answered the call. "You send me pictures of a smashed park bench." "Come out here, Owen," Laura yelled as Ken explained to her that once again, Owen didn't receive anything. As the night drew close and darkness started settling, Ken and Laura spotted a pair of headlights approaching. The vehicle came to a halt in front of them, and Owen emerged with his laptop in hand. "Couldn't this wait till daytime?" Owen grumbled. "You know it can't, Owen," Laura replied. "Get to work," Ken added, his voice carrying an air of urgency, setting up his gear beside the body on the bench. However, before he could fully settle in, another explosion-like sound pierced the night air. Ken and Laura exchanged looks before springing into action, their firearms drawn and ready. Owen followed behind, albeit at a slower pace. Arriving at the source of the noise, they found themselves confronted with a puzzling sight. A crater in the ground, reminiscent of a meteor impact. Within the depression lay yet another lifeless body, that of a woman looks to be in her mid-30s, her pale skin shining in the light of the moon. "Do you think we can move this one?" Ken questioned, disregarding protocol as he approached the body. Laura, equally perplexed by the bizarre turn of events, made no attempt to restrain him. With cautious steps, Ken extended 2 fingers, intending to check for signs of life. However, as his touch made contact with the woman's neck, a deafening thunderclap resonated overhead, accompanied by a brilliant flash of lightning striking near the playground. "Wasn't that near the playground?" Laura voiced her concern, her gaze fixed on the distant scene. "Yes," Ken affirmed, his tone grave. "Call those 2 over there. We need to secure this place." Just as Ken turned his attention back to the woman, he was met with a chilling sight, her eyes wide open and glossy, her hand gripping his shirt with an unexpected strength. A shiver ran down his spine as she whispered in his ear, "I'm coming. I want you all." "What the—" Ken's voice trailed off, his terror palpable as he stumbled back towards Laura. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Let's just go back to the sandbox. This might be above our pay grade," Ken responded. Shocked and disconcerted by the encounter, they retraced their steps toward the sandbox. However, Ken's condition deteriorated rapidly, his speech slurring and his movements unsteady. Concerned, Laura insisted on a brief respite, urging him to rest before continuing with the investigation. As they approached the sandbox, a peculiar sight greeted them. A beam of light emanating from the area, illuminating the surroundings with a light so bright Ken, Lauren, and Owen had to cover their eyes. The blast of light lasted only a short while, and the group entered the sandbox only to find the dead body was missing. The sand lay empty, the body gone. Laura knelt at the place where the body previously had been found. "Hey, come see this," she said. She knocked on the flat surface in the sand, and they heard a metallic echo. "There appears to be something here beneath the sand." The group searched in the sand, trying to push it away. "Hey, I found something," Owen said. "Press it," Ken said, looking pale. Owen pressed it, and a loud vanishing scream from Ken was heard as he vanished into thin air. "What? Where? Ken!" Laura exclaimed. She didn't know what to do. Where had Ken disappeared to? A loud explosion-like sound was heard again, this time louder, as if it came from their own place, and a whistling noise was heard, and they looked up into the skies. "Watch out!" Laura yelled, pushing Owen aside. It was Ken. He dropped from the sky, he hit the flat surface and plummeted through, leaving it open. "Ken!" Laura once again yelled, with tears in her eyes. As Laura and Owen stood in the sand, unsure whether to follow the same path Ken had plummeted into, the dark hole in the sandbox. "Think we should?" Owen's voice trembled. "We have to," Laura replied, as she wiped away the tears from her eyes. Entering the hole in the ground, they ventured forward cautiously, relying on their flashlights to navigate the dark tunnel. "Looks like an old tunnel," Owen observed. Ignoring the obvious, Laura pressed on. "Wait up," Owen urged. "I know you want to find Ken, but please, let's be cautious." A sudden gust of wind, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps echoing through the tunnel. "Did you hear that?" Laura's voice wavered as she glanced nervously around. Spotting some ancient drawings on the tunnel walls depicting mysterious and horrific creatures, Laura pointed them out to Owen. "Look," she whispered. Owen studied the drawings, feeling a sense of unease creeping over him. "We're not alone in here," he muttered, his grip tightening on his flashlight. As they moved deeper into the tunnel, whispers grew louder, and the sound of footsteps drew closer. "Hey, you see this?" Laura pointed to another disturbing drawing. Owen's eyes widened in horror. "It looks like they're eating people," he gasped. Laura shook her head. "That makes no sense. We found the bodies. They weren't eaten." A primal howl reverberated through the tunnel, sending shivers down their spines. "Run!" Laura's voice echoed as she pushed Owen forward. "We have to get out now." Heart pounding, they raced through the tunnel, desperate to find their way back to the sandbox. But the whispers, footsteps, and howls seemed to close in on them from all sides. "Here!" Owen shouted as they finally reached the sandbox. Climbing out in haste, they stood watching the hole, hoping nothing would follow them. But their relief was short-lived. As they gazed into the distance, horror washed over them. The entire area, as far as they could see, was engulfed in flames. A deep howl resonated from the tunnel, growing louder and more menacing by the second. And then, a fiery figure emerged, its presence so horrifying, casting a shadow over Lauren and Owen. As the figure drew closer, a blinding light enveloped Laura and Owen, leaving them disoriented and bewildered. And then suddenly, Laura found herself back in the car with Ken on their way to the sandbox. "Ken, stop, turn around," Laura urged urgently. "We can't go. It's bad." Ken shook his head. "What are you on about?" he scoffed. "We have a job to do." Laura's mind raced as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Was it all just my imagination? She wondered. As they neared the sandbox, Laura's gaze fell upon the two kids and their parents, the officers and detectives, the scene unfolding before them. It all felt familiar, as if she had seen this exact moment play out before. "Show us," Laura heard Ken say, his voice cutting through the uncertainty like a knife. But as she looked around, a nagging sense of déjà vu washed over her. "This feels wrong," Laura said as they heard the first explosion-like sound.